The following paper is by Heather Smyth, a psychology doctoral student at Arizona State University, and by me, Christopher Carr. We will summarize a Hopewell archaeological case study that employs some of the soul concepts discussed in the previous two papers. Our paper is entitled Scioto Hopewell Ideas About Multiple Soul-like Essences in Humans, Mortuary Expression in View of Postcolonial Woodland and Plains Indians' Soul Concepts. The paper is read by Heather Smyth.
In historic, small-scale band and tribal societies around the world, including woodland and plains Indian groups, a core concern of individuals was their soul or souls. Attention to one's souls and those of others motivated individual actions in many domains of life: health, social success, hunting success, sexual relations, intergroup warfare, community well-being, ecological rejuvenation, and birth and death, to name a few examples. Rituals in these domains centered around souls. The emphasis on souls in small-scale societies derives from their worldviews and rituals resting on shaman-like principles and practices which attend foremost to souls: protecting one's soul, nurturing one's soul, stealing souls, removing bad power intrusions from one's soul, sending power intrusions into an enemy's soul, blending souls, and journeying through soul flight to fulfill many common needs. One would anticipate that Scioto Hopewell peoples who lived in Ohio in the first few centuries A.D. also put great attention on their souls, given that they were small-scale horticultural hunting foragers, and that their material culture had a heavy shamanic orientation. Good examples of their shamanic leanings are this depiction of a probable bear doctor in trance, with the head of his soul emerging from his body. Also, this sculpted bird with a human head on its head, representing a human soul as a bird capable of flight or flying with the aid of a bird. We found promise in documenting the concepts that Scioto Hopewell peoples had about souls in an early study of Robert Hall's. Hall posited that the dot-within-circle motifs that pre-Hopewell Adena artists used to depict the joints, places of body movement, pulse points, and body openings of birds and human-bird composites, as shown here, represented their multiple souls at those locations. He backed up his interpretation with native North American analogies. Further, we observed that in like manner, Scioto Hopewell peoples commonly put mirror-like copper plates at analogous anatomical positions of their deceased, under the head, chest, hips, and knees, pulse points, and joints, for example here. And here. We hypothesized that the Scioto Hopewell thought souls to reside at these locations and used mirrors there to portal, guide, or deflect souls, just as mirrors are used in shamanic rites. We posed 9 topics about Scioto Hopewell soul concepts that we thought possible to explore with human remains and grave goods. 1. The number of souls that Scioto Hopewell peoples thought to reside in a living individual. 2. Their bodily locations. 3. Whether soul locations corresponded with anatomical pulse points, joints, and body openings. 4. Which souls were thought to exit the body at death. 5. Their locations of exit. 6. Their directions of exit, which might give insight into the direction of an afterlife. 7. Whether it was thought necessary to mark locations of residence and exit of souls with artifacts helpful in the exiting process. 8. The differing functions and activities of different souls. And 9. Whether medicines of different kinds were placed at different soul locations to heal the souls of varying ailments uncured in life. Here we will address only 7 of these topics for want of time. To investigate these topics, we searched for patterns in the placement of 30 kinds of artifacts around inhumed bodies in graves. The artifact classes likely functioned in 5 activities involving souls, considering historic woodland and plains Indian analogs. 1. Serving as a portal, guide, or deflector of a soul leaving the deceased's body. 2. Communing between the living, dead, and other spirits. 3. Divining about matters concerning the deceased. 4. Healing the deceased's souls. And 5. Acquiring and or conveying the soul power of the deceased's clan eponym. We call these items power artifacts, as they afforded power to the living to work with souls. Examples include mirrors used to guide souls, to divine with them, and to commune with them, reflective pieces of metals and mica that might have served as soul guides or as tokens for passage along the route to an afterlife, pieces of copper said historically to be scales of the horned serpent and useful for healing and gaining power, and small gem points for extracting power intrusions from souls and for divining. The mortuary data comes from 284 burials in 11 cemeteries in the Scioto drainage, dating between approximately AD 1 and AD 350. Some highlights of our findings are as follows. Scioto Hopewell peoples recognized an individual to have at least 8 soul-like essences and possibly up to 17. This we infer from the placement of power artifacts with greatest frequency at 8 different body positions, but at a total of 17 body positions. The idea of 8 souls corresponds with historic Woodland and Plains Indian numerological and cosmological systems that emphasize the numbers 4 and 8, but a much larger number of souls has precedence in Ojibwa Medewan thought and ritual. The head was likely thought to be the seat of what anthropologists of Native American religion call a free soul, one that journeys out of the body during dreaming, trancing, and illness, and travels to a land of the dead after death. The head is the body part that Scioto Hopewell peoples marked most frequently with power artifacts by far. Other body locations where power artifacts were placed were likely thought to be seats of what are called body souls, or the separate manifestations of a single body soul. Body souls in historic Woodland and Plains Indian thought remain with the body during life and give it life. After death, they may remain in the bones or certain organs, stay close to the body as a grave ghost, wander more widely, often causing havoc, reincarnate, or die. Scioto Hopewell peoples likely recognized body souls to reside in the trunk of the body, including the neck, chest, shoulders, abdomen, and hips, but also in the peripheral body, especially the hands and wrist, and also other arm and leg parts. The apparent attribution of souls to the neck and to the peripheries does not accord with historic Woodland and Plains ideas. The bodily locations where Scioto Hopewell peoples placed power artifacts and marked souls associate very strongly with pulse points and locations of major arteries that would gush when cut. Less so with joints and places of movement, and least commonly with natural body openings where souls might have been thought to enter and exit. We measured the strength of association between anatomical features and where power artifacts were placed with a Jacquard coefficient, as shown. The Scioto Hopewell system for marking souls differed from the Adena system in placing more emphasis on pulse points and major arteries, and less on joints and places of body movement. The number of souls that Scioto Hopewell peoples attributed to an individual was thought to be stable over one's life. We found no evidence that infants, children, and adolescents were thought to have fewer souls than adults and to gain them while maturing. Nor does it appear that older adults were thought to lose souls as they aged. Both of these age changes were known at least occasionally among historic Woodland Indians. Scioto Hopewell peoples did, however, distinguish younger from older individuals in which soul locations they emphasized or not by marking them more or less frequently with power artifacts. The hands, shoulders, and feet were marked more frequently than expected for children through young adults, and less frequently than expected for middle and old adults. Obversely, the chest was underemphasized for children through young adults and emphasized for middle and old adults. The pattern is a strong one, but its cultural meaning is unclear. Males and females were not distinguished from each other by Scioto Hopewell peoples in their number and location of souls, or in having a free soul situated in the head. However, the body souls emphasized for females through artifact placements are all in the extremities or connected with them, and are joints and places of motion. In contrast, the body souls emphasized for males are all in the center of the body and are pulse points or have a body opening. For females, these locations are the hands, shoulders, and feet, while for males, they are the neck, chest, and abdomen. Significantly, these differences between the sexes are in the nature of only their body souls, perhaps indicating differences between males and females in the physiological functions attributed to some body souls. On a different note, females resembled children through young adults in the marking of their same soul locations with power artifacts more commonly than expected, the hands, shoulders, and feet. Males and older adults shared an emphasis on the chest. This pattern is not surprising, considering that historic woodland and plains Indians categorized young individuals with females, and in distinction from socially mature males, in several domains of life: warfare, political leadership, subsistence division of labor, and sometimes the different afterlives to which adult males versus females and the young might go. Scioto Hopewell peoples probably thought that most, if not all, of a person's souls left the body at death. This we infer from the bodily placement of mirrors and other artifacts probably used by the living to portal, guide, or deflect exiting souls, and used by the dead as tokens necessary for the passage to an afterlife. Such artifacts were put at almost all of the body locations where power artifacts marked souls, suggesting the egress of all of those souls at death. By far, most attention was given to the exiting of the apparent free soul and its journey to an afterlife through placing at the head artifacts that aided soul departure. This was done probably to ensure the well-being of the deceased and the living. We were not surprised to see body souls marked for their exit as well, because historic woodland and plains Indians commonly attended to both grave ghosts and the free soul that proceeded to an afterlife. Artifact placements do not support the hypothesis that souls were thought to exit the body at one or a few special openings, such as the mouth, ears, eyes, navel, or genitals, despite the commonality of these ideas cross-culturally. However, the idea that the free soul exited the fontanelle is supported by the frequent placement of breastplates and other artifacts under or near the top of the head. Exit through the nostrils is suggested by 3 unique burials that had copper funnels inserted in their nostrils after death. The directions that souls were thought to exit the body were diverse: horizontal and vertical, up and down, and from the left and right sides of the body, the direction probably having depended considerably on the particular identities of the deceased and circumstances of their lives and death. Horizontal departure was emphasized over vertical exit for older individuals, while the reverse was true for children through young adults. The same contrast was found for males versus females, again with females categorized with young individuals and set apart from socially mature males. The contrast implies different notions about the initial direction of the journey to an afterlife for these 2 age and sex groups, and perhaps different afterlives for them. The sorting of souls by age and sex after death was a fairly common idea among historic woodland and plains Indians. Different kinds of medicines and artifacts for healing were placed at different soul locations, suggesting 3 different modalities of healing: by blood or pulse, surface application of medicines, and ingestion of medicines. Bear canines in numbers other than 4, which do not clearly identify a social role and possibly housed medicines within their pulp cavities, were placed where major arteries run close to the surface, at the neck, hips, and wrist. Raw pieces of copper, galena, and tortoise shell were positioned apparently as surface treatments at the shoulder, which is not a pulse point. One individual was interred with red ochre in the mouth. In conclusion, souls were at the center point of Scioto Hopewell life, as they were in most of the world's small-scale societies with shaman-like worldviews. Tending to their souls and dealing with those of others was core to their rituals, which in turn were the raison d'être for their spectacular earthworks and artworks, from their cultural point of view. Thank you for listening.